Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Education Committee meeting for School District 68, June 7th, 2003, and it's just after 6 o'clock in the evening. With great respect and humility, we acknowledge and honor the lands of the Snuneymuxw people. The Snuneymuxw people maintain their profound, unique, and spiritual connection to the land through ageless traditions, teaching, stewardship, and expressions of reciprocity. Just before we begin, I'll just like to say a couple of things. And the first one is Aikwaneet, which is good evening, and Aikwananilam Nama Atanakwale. It's good to see you today. Before we begin the formal part of our meeting, the agenda, I just would like to acknowledge before we begin, this is our last education meeting for this school year, and I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, and I raise my hands to Scott, Jackie, Dawn, Laura, Ricky, Carrie, Nicole Davey, and Kristen Funk Robinson. All of the work that you've done to present to us at the board and to the public have been so appreciated, and I think I have a good idea of how much work is involved in you getting all the information to the board. And we've seen some amazing presentations, and please forgive me if I don't remember all of them, but I know the environment and the climate change stewardship sustainability presentations were amazing. Indigenous education presentations, outdoor education stood out for me as well. Inclusive education presentations. There was just so much work put into it, and I feel that we as a board have learned a lot about what's going on in our district, and just some basic learning too about the programs and what they entail. So I would just like to thank the leadership, senior management, and the district principals and the directors of education, again, and all the teachers, education assistants and principals for all the hard work they've done this year to make our students' lives joyful and memorable. So thank you very much. And then I'll carry on. So additions to the agenda, deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or change in order to the agenda? And if there's none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda in the chat box, please?
Naomi, I have one addition.
You have an addition, okay.
Yes, I do. Thanks. Ice Quell, everyone. Just at the end of the meeting, perhaps we could acknowledge where we're all going to be on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and why?
should I put? Yeah. I'm just looking at where we can have new business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Naomi.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so we've had one change, an addition to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of Mark doing a mention of Sunday's event? Leanna? Okay, and we have a seconder. I better go in the chat. Okay, Leanne Lee, sorry. Okay, all those in favor? I mean, if you disagree, you can put it in the chat. Doesn't look like there's any one voting against, so the agenda has been approved. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting dated May 3rd, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please? Chantel Morvay. It's all bouncing around on me now. And Leanna Pellegrin will be a seconder then. Anybody against approving the minutes? Doesn't look like there's anybody, so the motion to approve the minutes is passed. We don't have any presentations today. We have senior staff reports. And I'm going to turn this over to Carrie Steele, Director of Instruction. And yeah, Carrie, take it away.
And Chair, maybe I'm just going to kick it off really quick if I could. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to what Carrie is about to present to you, but just wanted to acknowledge the work of IT starting the project that you're about to hear about with respect to data, and Mr. Merchant's not here this evening. He's off at a family event, which we're very happy to support that. So just about a year ago, I suppose, we started getting a number of questions about the reliability of data, the accessibility of data, how quick we could kind of respond to data, how we're using data to drive decision making as well as drive interventions. And so starting with the strategy as noted, and Carrie will talk a little bit more about that with respect to this, IT and learning services have been working together to, number one, frame the question of the kind of resources that we want to see, and then frankly start building a program in order to address that. And so, I believe the board we've always had presentations about how we're doing with FSA and some of the major data driven by the Ministry of Education and Childcare, but we haven't necessarily been able to access quickly data that we have at our own fingertips that's locally driven, including report card data as an example. And so tonight you're going to see, I guess, the beta version of what the data dashboard for the district that we're very excited and we think is going to be an incredible tool, both from reporting, so from an accountability perspective, but more important as we move forward, and we're not there yet, but it will also be a tool as a predictive and intervention driving tool. And so excited to be able to introduce this and just express appreciation for the work that IT and Learning Services have done together to move this forward, and turn it over to Carrie.
Thank you. Yeah, so through the chair, I do have a few slides that I'd like to share with everybody this evening. Really, this has largely been the work of the IT department up until this point. When the beta version was ready, which they're calling their sandbox. I love that. But anyway, we've been looking at the sandbox version of it just to try to start manipulating some of the information and ask the kinds of questions that we've been asking to see if we're able to answer them using this tool. And we're actually really excited about it. I think we've got some more collaboration to do, but I'm going to share my screen and just share a few screenshots of kind of the direction that it's headed in. So this data analytics tool is powered by a software machine called Power BI. So it's built within that. And so here's an example of one of the slides. This gives us first-time graduation data from our secondary schools. So it gives us a glimpse of the overall trajectory across the system, but also what's happening at individual schools. And you can see the right is a circle that gives us a quick snapshot of how many students in the system each of those lines represent. So this is an example that's showing Cedar, Dover, Nanaimo, NDSS, and Wellington. We could look at a single school. We can look at all of the high schools at once. So it just gives us a chance to kind of peek into that. The same data set sorted a different way. So this is the same place in the platform, but now it's showing only ministry students who are in ministry special education categories. So the first slide showed us all the grads at these schools. Now we're able to look at the grads that have ministry designations at the schools. So it just gives us a different way to interact with the data. Over time, there'll be some additional filters added so we can take a look at resident and non-resident students, ELL students, non-grads, Indigenous students. So it lets us drill into the information in a slightly different way. Here's another slide that takes a look at some of the elementary report card data. So you can see on the left a whole big giant list of courses that are possible to wonder about. And what we're looking at here specifically is English Language Arts grade 1 for reading. And it's showing us the data across the different elementary schools. So again, down the road, we'll be able to sort by family of schools. So for example, all of the elementary schools that feed into NDSS, we could look as a single grouping. We'll also be able to, again, sort by students in specific cohorts, like our Indigenous learners in individual building or our kids with ministry designations. So another slide here is showing us some secondary course completion data. So again, this one can be filtered by grade level, by cohort here, by specific course. We're working on some additional filters that, like, for example, you know, we know that there's many ways to fulfill the social studies 11 grad requirements. So we could loop all of the courses that would satisfy that requirement into one filter and then look at all of the grade 11 students at a particular school and see who's fulfilled their requirement for social studies and how that's going for them. So we're still working on developing some of those options and filters. We're finding that we're super excited about what we see so far, but until we're trying to actually answer questions, it's a bit difficult to know whether the layout of the particular report is exactly what we need or not. So that's where IT and learning services have landed at the table together is, okay, let's ask a question. If we want to know how all of the Indigenous girls in grade 9 are doing in a particular subject area at one school, or how all of our learners with autism are doing in a specific area, can we drill to the data at that granular level? We can't quite yet, but we're getting closer, and we're super excited about the potential. And so really where we're at now is IT and learning services having lots more conversation about some of the reports that are really functional. We're going to start working with that data right away. Some of the other ones, we're still tweaking the format and the kind of filter that's attached to them. So that's a really high level, quick snapshot at it. But really we are at the place where we're just really excited about potential, and I'm sure we'll have more that we can share over the course of the next school year.
And perhaps before we go to questions, I could just add one more piece as we talk about the phases of the project. So again, phase 1, this idea of gathering all the data, making sure that we're accessing it in a correct way, also reviewing the data to see its effectiveness. So for instance, report card data as an example, we're going to have 100% of students, and so that information is very accurate. Whereas FSA is very useful if we had, full uptake, but if we don't, then maybe that's going to be driving different information. So that's going to be a positive from a kind of public narrative perspective, but also from an intervention perspective. And then, of course, the predictive nature is going to be another stage in building this out. So, for instance, Assistant Superintendent Balcombe will say, okay, well, we know that if you're not successful in grade 9X, we are going to be able to see that in grade 12. And so there we go. There's going to be a place for intervention, and we're trying to build the system so the system will be able to kind of tell us, like have an early warning, alarm system to say, okay, here's a student based off of the kind of predictive nature that here's a vulnerability for falling behind or not graduating or what have you. And so that's coming. And so as we continue to report out on a yearly basis, this is what we're building to, but this is just the very beginning. We need to make sure that Learning Services is satisfied with the data that's in there, that it's kind of user-friendly nature, and then we'll continue to build out from there. And so, and just to say, whoever, if you're watching the tonight and you kind of freeze frame because we're recording it, please just the data we've taken as an exemplar. However, we're still just making sure that it's all accurate and it's coming out in the system the proper way. So again, this is very much the sandbox phase. So we're just trying to give examples of what's possible.
Thank you very much, Mark. And Carrie for the presentation. I can recall my first stint as a trustee back in January in the by-election after I got elected, that this was one of the big conversations we were having, was the struggle to be able to obtain that data so that we could make, you know, certain decisions, educational decisions based on where students were at various schools. And it seemed like such a far off, you know, ability, like to be able to do this, but to hear that we're already getting there within a year and a bit, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So
Well,
thank you very
it's
much.
really letting us put a fine point on the information for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions from trustees? Looks like, Chantel, you have a comment?
Yeah, actually, I just realized it's kind of more of a question, actually. This is super exciting. I love data. I think it's fantastic. And then you get to dig into it to like really see kind of the granular level. Okay, you know, there's something happening here, and then you're like, oh, okay, it's nothing too big or whatever. But it's still that's that early kind of warning system, you know, that I really appreciate, and I just think that's really really seeing into the future, and I appreciate that work. That's absolutely fantastic. I I think actually this is something you probably already have, but I just kind of want to know for my own uh, curiosity is attendance, right? Like we know attendance is so important, and that's like, you know, a big one. And so that'll be in there, obviously.
Yeah, so I showed you like 2 of about 8 pages that are part of this platform, and yes, the attendance data is in there. I chose not to do screenshots tonight because those pages have kids' names all over them, and so I didn't want to put that on screen. But we'll be able to do things like, how did students who missed more than 15 days of class fare with their final marks in English 9? Right, that kind of data we'll be able to drill down. Well, English 9 is probably not the best example, but there's other, you know, we'll be able to kind of figure that out. And I think, yeah, like the predictive piece of it, I think is really exciting. Like, are we seeing some trends? Are we seeing some particular points of tension that are things we can do something about to support our kids, right? So, but we are realizing that we have some high level questions. We're definitely going to need some time to have specific wonders and really start playing around with it. And I mean, the nice thing about a locally developed tool is when we come up with a question we can't answer because of the way the platform works, we have a meeting with IT and we brainstorm together about, okay, well, what could this look like? And, you know, our new data analyst is really skilled at taking the stuff we say in a meeting and turning it into the concrete thing we can interact with. So I'm really excited actually about where this is going to go.
It's fantastic. One more follow-up question. Kind of
Yeah.
popped into my head there, Naomi. Thank you. Is, you know, we talk about like safety incidences that are happening and stuff, right? Like I just think this will be a really great tool to kind of like follow that trend and understand, like, you know, what do we need to do for our staff and our people and this families and stuff like that. So this is really great. I'm very excited about it. So thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Tanya.
Thank you, Chair. Naomi. My apologies all for being late. I was at a different meeting and then I got cold and had to find something to throw on me. Anyway, Mike, so I apologize if you've covered this. Will you be able to track things like kids on partial days or and that kind of stuff?
So yes, not within this tool at the moment. So I mean, potentially in this tool. One of the things that Director Funky Robinson learned recently, it's that BC Case Network that we're part of, that's people and inclusive ed roles across the province. Like, it's just such a robust team with such great ideas. And so one of the things that we learned recently is there is some functionality in MyEd that we were unaware of around tracking things like not violent incident reports. We have a different mechanism for that, but if there's a VITRA process around a student, if they're on an employee safety plan, if there's an integration plan for somebody part-time, those are all things that we can build in filters in MyEd to track. And so we didn't know that was possible till about a month ago. So that's become a summer project for us, is to learn a little bit more. Once we have that info in MyEd somewhere, then this tool will have a way to draw it and help us sort it. But I think we might even be able to just generate district-wide and school-wide reports directly from MyEd, which will be much better than all the spreadsheets we keep in other places separate from it right at the minute. So, yeah.
And I would imagine that you'll be able to, if for example, the board wanted to have a work session to learn more about the needs of our kids with disabilities, or and so on and so forth, that you could mask the data in the sense of names and such so that we could talk more broadly about issues in the future?
I think some of the data, I think some of it will be like the things that come out in the HOD report, where if the cohort is too small, it becomes a little bit more identifying. But I mean,
Okay.
I'm certainly open to, you know, working with whoever it is that, you know, we need to figure it out together and, you
Okay.
know, yeah.
Thank you. Just thinking about future things that we
Yeah,
might want
yeah.
to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And
Um,
perhaps I can add, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other piece to this is that we're very alert to the kind of ensuring that data is not only accessible to kind of those who need it, frankly, also that it's as of use, right? Because we can get all the data in the world, but it needs to have a kind of a need at the end of the day. And so we're still talking about how, you know, how we make accessibility to this is what would be useful to a teacher, this would what be useful for the school principal, this is what would be useful for, you know, learning services, etc. And here's what we don't need to see as an example. So those are part of the kind of iterative process.
Okay. So we have a question from Joe from the NDTA. And the question is, where is data being housed? Is data being tied to specific teachers or just specific students?
So my understanding is that all the data is actually housed in MyEd. This is just a platform pulling, and for the other data sources, it pulls it into like a central, it's a Microsoft tool that's part of the Office 365 kind of, you know, the Power BI is connected to the Microsoft products, but the data is being pulled from sources we already have. And it is about students and cohorts of students. So, I mean, it's attached to teachers in the sense that we can go into MyEd for any of our kids and find out what their course load is and who their homeroom teacher is and all of those pieces, but that's not how we interact with this data. This data is about understanding trends of student progress or, you know, things that are happening for cohorts of students in the system. So there wouldn't be a moment where we would print out all of the students for one teacher, and like that's not the intention of the data. It's more to help us with our planning and interventions. I don't know if that quite got the question, but
Yeah, no, that's good, Carrie. Joe, do you have a follow-up? I don't see you.
Oh, yeah.
Follow-up. There's a follow-up. Yeah. Oh, the anticipation. Oh, it was answered apparently. Okay. All right. All right. Next up, we have a
Perhaps, Chair, I
comment.
would also say that we're probably going to ask Joe to sit down at some point soon when we're getting closer to have some of those discussions. Also, to again, as we start to tailor it, so we think that it would be useful for, you know, school-based staff as well once it gets there, to find out what school-based staff would find valuable and useful for, you know, for how they're going to serve kids. So.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And that was a good question, Joe. And next up, we have Leanne. Would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, kind of echoing everyone else's, that this is such great news because it's going to save so much time for our educators to be able to make more effective decisions quickly rather than having to sift through everything. So this is exciting. Thanks. No follow-up.
Okay. All right. Moving on, I don't see any other questions. I guess the next, we have another presentation for sharing by the Department of Learning Services, and that would be Nicole Davey, Director of Instruction, Learning and Innovation. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here, and I'm really happy to speak to you tonight on enhancing the understanding of Tier 1 system support. So this supports our goal connected to the operational plan around continuous improvement in support for students with diverse abilities and disabilities, Indigenous and overall student population, and student achievement. And we are continuing to provide opportunities for our employees to work toward full implementation of the new curriculum. And that is a big mouthful, but I wanted to just share some highlights of the year in terms of the things that we have been working on with learning and literacy coordinators. So just to give some background, in order for students to grow and learn and thrive, the education system needs to adopt a holistic approach, addressing students' academic, emotional, and physical needs. This approach recognizes the diversity of learners and the need to personalize and individualize programming. Implementing Tier 1 system supports is a strategy that supports student success for all, and these include approaches, practices, and strategies connected to the learning environment, social emotional development, literacy practices, numeracy practices, and behavior. So in my role, I've been able to support the district in offering a variety of professional learning opportunities for educators using diverse structures and platforms in order to build capacity around Tier 1 system supports. And learning and literacy coordinators were key in organizing and delivering these learning opportunities. So the first one I'd like to share is a numeracy learning series. So every elementary school in the district had one primary and one intermediate teacher attend a learning session with numeracy educator Carol Fullerton 3 to 4 times throughout the year. And they were able to receive a workshop from Carol and observe other teachers' classrooms teaching a lesson. This provided opportunities for educators to reflect on their practice, to implement changes, share resources, and co-plan lessons. And the focus was to develop innovative and best practice around numeracy skills. So math is one of those subjects that typically students don't always love. It usually is the least favorite subject for many students. So part of the goal was to address mindset around numeracy and use a growth mindset approach. So we wanted the numeracy practices to be hands-on, to be interactive, to have multiple ways for students to be able to gain knowledge and then show their learning. Another way that we were able to support numeracy was the creation of the Math Indicators of Proficiency, which is an online document. It's a resource that teachers can access on NLPS Learns. And they can go onto this site and it has the learning outcomes, and you click on the learning outcome and it will direct you to a page with resources and lesson plans. So that has been a really helpful tool. We were able to develop it for kindergarten, grade 2, grade 4, and grade 6, and the other grades are currently in development as well. We have also been working on a grade 7-8 formative assessment tool, and this was also shared with teachers. So this was to help bring together grade 7 and 8 teachers to support the transition from students moving from elementary to secondary, and it was a tool to help teachers understand where kids were performing at so that they could plan their lessons around the needs of students. So for our Tier 1 supported in numeracy, it's looking at creating a balanced numeracy program, promoting values and habits that help students connect, create, communicate, visualize, reason, and solve everyday problems. So we're looking at differentiation and formative assessment and using a range of tools and manipulatives that are accessible for all students. Another structure I'd like to highlight is our literacy coordinators. So we have 5 focus schools in our district, and these are schools that have been identified as having some vulnerability with their student population, with a focus on Indigenous learners. The literacy coordinator is able to work with staff to build capacity around the implementation of literacy skills, with explicit focus on the Tier 1 system of supports. And this involves co-planning and co-teaching with teachers, providing professional development to staff, providing one-on-one and small group support, doing model lessons, doing resource sharing and development, and then also using assessment, and then using that assessment to engage in data-driven decision-making. They also focus on building social emotional support with their students as well. They also, 1 day a week, work with other schools to support staffs in the development of their literacy practice. They also were able to offer workshops to other teachers in the district through what was called Meet and Eats, which were after school sessions where teachers could choose from a variety of sessions, and then they would go and have some professional development and then share a meal at the end. And we did that 4 times throughout the year. Our literacy coordinators were also key in developing an intermediate literacy screener, which is to support teachers in adopting literacy practices to meet the needs of their students. So they would give the assessment and once again be able to identify the needs of their students and then adapt their programming to meet those needs. And the Tier 1 supports highlighted with our literacy coordinators is the importance of a balanced literacy program, making sure that literacy instruction is universally designed and then differentiated, using data to inform instruction, and then once again making sure we have a holistic approach to meet the needs of our learners. We did have a wide focus on the foundational skills of literacy, and we moved into French immersion in particular to focus on developing early literacy skills. We wanted to improve the retention rates within French immersion programs, supporting capacity building with staff. So every French immersion teacher, K-3, were able to come together twice this year, and along with some of our principals, vice principals, and ISTs. And there was a 2-part learning series. They were also able to attend meetings where they were provided opportunities to learn more about the foundational skills of reading. We explored the use of other assessments to support French immersion. We know French immersion is unique, and we wanted to make sure that our resources and assessment tools met those unique needs. Another thing I'd like to highlight is our learning coordinators. So I have the pleasure and privilege of working with 7 learning coordinators. And our learning coordinators work with individual schools, teachers, and small groups of teachers throughout the year. And again, the focus is on the implementation of Tier 1 system supports. And this took the form of many different initiatives. We had an intermediate book club focusing on diversity in schools. So there was a diversity audit that took place with our teacher librarians. We want to ensure that the books that we have in our libraries reflects the diversity of our students. We also want to support sexual health in our schools, and there was a focus in particular on elementary. So we had a learning coordinator that was able to meet with teachers and schools to ensure that they had the lessons and the resources they needed for their students. We had our learning coordinators take a lead role in being part of the network of inquiry and Indigenous education. So we were able to support 10 school teams throughout the district with inquiries that focused on a variety of initiatives. We were able to support outdoor education and had a focus in particular on building capacity of our elementary teachers. So getting them certified, getting them exposed to different opportunities for taking their students outside. We also, with our learning coordinators, were able to support ELL within schools, especially as they were welcoming new families to Canada and to Nanaimo. And we had lots of work being done in early learning and with kindergarten mentorship, and that was learning more about the early learning framework. They offered, again, a variety of workshops, and that again took place 4 times a year as Meet and Eats. And these focused on topics such as social justice, literacy, Indigenous understandings, EFP, numeracy, early learning and technology. And we also were supporting our English First Peoples teachers in grades 10 and 12 as they were implementing that course this year, and we'll be looking to support that in future years as well. So we were able to bring these teachers together twice during the year. They were able to collaborate and share ideas and lessons. And we did also quite a bit of work around the new reporting order. So while we were learning more about the changes that this reporting order would have for our district guidelines, it also allowed us to go deeply into assessment practices to support all learners. We've also developed resources and digital tools and updated NLPS Learns. So again, we want to make sure that this site continues to be updated and is robust and useful to for our teachers. We also had a chance to work with school leaders. So our learning leaders come together 3 or 4 times this year, and these are our secondary school learning leaders, and our learning coordinators were able to support the learning portions of these meetings. We also were able to work with principals and vice principals as they attended our meet and eats, as they were part of our district assessment groups and our numeracy learning series and our network inquiry teams and our focus school meetings, and also being supportive and involved in the Transformative Reconciliation Day for our Curriculum Implementation Day. So I probably could go on and on, but that gives some highlights in terms of the work that we have done this year supporting the Tier 1 system supports. So questions? Oh, no.
Sorry. Does anyone have any questions for Nicole? Oh, Chantal would like to ask you a question.
I was trying to find the button to raise my hand, and then I realized, like, oh no, I have to do it this way. It's in a meeting before we're, anyway, switching back and forth is kind of hard to switch our brains, but thank you so much for this. It's a really great foundational aspect of like creating that culture and growing that common understanding. And it's really a really great piece of work here. I really appreciate this report. It actually like highlighted a lot of things I had questions about. So thank you for that. Just have a couple little ones. It's just to clarify kind of what was said in here to understand better. And that is, you had talked about the developed and an intermediate literacy screener to support teachers. Is that like is intermediate mean like grade 6 and up or 4 and up? Do we do any assessments earlier than that for our students? If you could explain a little bit further that, thank you.
Absolutely, Chantel. So we do have assessments that take place at the beginning of the year, and they're formative assessments. And we have something called the PARS for our kindergarten to grade 3. And then this intermediate screener with the feedback from teachers and a team, we wanted to do something similar for our intermediate students, and they're from grades 4 to grade 7. So they again have the screener, and it's a wonderful tool that teachers can use to get that information so that they know where their students are, so that they can personalize and tailor their lessons to meet the needs of their students.
Awesome, thank you. That's a good highlight. I'm glad we talked about it because people didn't know, and so that's a cool thing to have. My other one was, sorry, I have a follow-up question, but maybe we should go to a different person because it's not pertaining to that specifically. So if we want to go to somebody else first and then come back to me. And thank you.
I see Joanne from the NDTA. Comment from the NDTA. We appreciate your work, Nicole. However, the NDTA stands by the position that the reporting order is a draft until July 1st, 2023, when the final copy is released. So I guess that was just a comment.
Yep,
Yeah.
100, and she's absolutely right. Yep.
Okay. All right, and it looks like there's no other questions. So Chantel, do you want to do your follow-up, or you have another question? Ah,
Well, that actually brought another question of mine, but I think I'll just ask that some other time, somewhere else. But I don't know what reporting order specifically means. So, I guess.
Sorry, sometimes I forget and we use this jargon. So I hope that wasn't too jargony, Chantel.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I can ask a little bit later, unless you want to give me a
Yeah.
little tiny synopsis of what that means. That would be really great. That
Yeah.
wasn't my original question, but
Yeah, so we follow a reporting order, and that gives us our guidelines in terms of how and when we communicate to parents around student learning. And an updated reporting order was in draft form, and we have spent the year, we had a secondary and an elementary assessment group come together to go through the draft to see what that was going to look like and what that was going to mean. So that, and we wanted to get input from teachers and from principals. We wanted to communicate out that these changes were coming. And we have the updated drafts for our local guidelines are almost ready to be, they are ready. We do have a draft for them, but they don't come into effect until the next school year.
oh, absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. Clarifying that, and other people might have had that same question too when that popped up. But
I appreciate it. Thanks, Chantel.
thank you. Can I ask my question, my original one? Is that okay through you, Chair?
yes.
Naomi? Awesome, thank you. Learning coordinators. We talked about them doing ELL supports for schools and welcoming new families. Do they coordinate with Swiss workers?
So this is a good question. That's good. So we have a collaboration between learning coordinators and then inclusion support coordinators as well, and inclusion support teachers as well, and ELL teachers. So there's with we're receiving many more students who are requiring supports with ELL, and one of the learning coordinators is there to be a community liaison with some of the community groups as well. So we do have people working in schools providing that programming to students. The learning coordinator that I work with does more of the liaison pieces and the coordination and can support teachers with Tier 1, for example, literacy practices. So and especially at the secondary level, when there's some technology that can be very, very helpful. So that has been a lot of her focus with support.
Great, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, I don't see any more. Well, just hold on a second. I've got to get back. Oh, Greg has a comment.
I'm going to come up on screen. I've been having some tech issues. Okay, there we go.
Thanks.
So thank you for the presentation, Nicole. I think, I always appreciate hearing the level of complexity and effort that goes into trying to coordinate professional learning opportunities and different positions and all of the different things that go into supporting students so that they can be successful. And when I was taking a look at this material, it's a lot of information, and I think it goes to show us all the the challenge that we all face in trying to do our best to support student success. So thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing, and our students appreciate the support, because without that, they would not be successful. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Nicole. I really appreciate all your work as well. And just thinking how much I had a conversation with superintendent a few days ago, just about how much teaching has changed since I first started. It's just so much more complex now. Appreciate all your work. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Naomi. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, so next up, in our agenda is I'm going to call Scott Saywell, our superintendent, is going to do a district review story.
Asim Nasiaya, Mike Snate, Makwanasi Lanala Tanakwaya, friends and relatives, good evening. It's nice to see everyone. Thanks, Naomi, and thanks to the other Learning Services Department presenters this evening. So yes, the district review story. As superintendent of Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools, I am humbled and privileged to present to you the culmination of our work over the last year to deliver on the goals of our strategic plan. It's my honor to share with you our district review story of our progress, our challenges, and aspirations as we strive for excellence in education. As leaders in education, we are tasked with a great responsibility to provide our students with the best possible opportunities for growth, learning, and success. Our district review story has been submitted with unwavering dedication to our strategic plan, our 4 board goals, 20 objectives, and dozens of strategies. In this report, you will find an overview of the strengths that have propelled our district forward. We celebrate our dedicated educators and support staff who have tirelessly worked to ignite the spark of curiosity within our students, inspiring them to become lifelong learners. We recognize the collaborative efforts of our administrators who lead with vision and purpose, steering our district towards academic excellence. And we commend our students who consistently demonstrate resilience, determination, and a thirst for knowledge. And of course, our teachers and support staff who are always there. As we navigate the challenges and opportunities before us, let us remember that our mission remains steadfast: to educate our students to become confident, curious, and caring citizens by creating an inspiring, inclusive, and healthy environment to work, learn, and play. It is through our collective efforts in collaboration with our dedicated educators, our passionate parents, Indigenous right holders, and the wider community that we can shape the future of education in our district. To begin, I'd like to share a video with you that the communications department put together. I think this encapsulates the great work that is happening in our schools as it relates to our strategic plan. So I see it on the screen there, Dale, if you could play the video, please.
They get to learn about different topics such as anxiety management, healthy living, how to deal with friends who might be having mental health.
activities that they can do, like games or puzzles or a Lego. It's just a nice place that they can come where there's other kids that they can play with, and opportunity for me to connect with them. And we just want there to be a place where kids feel like they belong and have somewhere to be.
Flow is a safe place for me because it's filled with people that I enjoy being around and I trust deeply.
It also gave me a space to be myself and feel comfortable to express myself and to identify freely because I'm non-binary, and it was a comfortable space, and there was a lot of other trans kids there too. And
everybody deserves a smile.
I think it's really great that everybody is like taking their time to like really help the community to make it a better place for everybody. Write a special note inside, and then they'll read it.
There was a few that was like, I know things that are tough right now, but it will get better, stay strong, with a nice little heart in the middle.
Whether homelessness is an issue that's important to you, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's about inclusion, maybe it's about the environment, right? Maybe it's about sport. Whatever moves you, I want to encourage you to take action and pick a cause and do something, because when you do that, you discover something extraordinary about yourself.
Basically digging here for like invasive plants basically, and then we measure them and then write how long they were there.
What can we do?
Shoreline cleanup.
Shoreline cleanup, good.
What's another thing?
Good, recycling, good.
Costume contest where we just have to do something kind of creative or make it with reusable things.
Nice.
Give some love. You guys out here cheering on. Like your skin needs to breathe. Yeah, good, man. So we want to make sure she's going nice and upright, and we want to make sure we get the base of the trees level.
I don't know, of course it's gonna be different for me because I don't know, I'm white, so I'm not gonna be as connected with the culture as the actual indigenous people, but I think it's important for everybody to learn, of course. Like, I forget who said it, but just knowledge is the first step to reconciliation.
I don't think that part of Canada's history can ever fully be healed, but at least start that community and teaching people about what Canada was like so many years ago, and just getting people to understand what our history really is.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks to you and the communications department. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. I hope you appreciated that is a great representation of how the board's goals are alive and well in district classrooms. And of course, if it's not happening in classrooms, the work just isn't happening. So I hope people appreciated the video. It will accompany the district review story on the website. So The district review story itself is designed to be relatively comprehensive, an overview of the district's work over the year, and something that's easily digestible on our progress on the strategic plan. The previous board appreciated that a traffic light system as a easy and identifiable way to show how we were doing on each goal and each board objective. So we used it again in this document as well. I do hope trustees have had a chance to at least have a quick look at it over the last couple of days. You'll notice that the document also has a link to our education committee agendas, and we'll put the video, our YouTube video as well, of our education committee work, so the public can see that we are constantly updating the board and the community on our progress. This is our last district review story for this strategic plan, which has guided a lot of work in our district over the last 4 years, 2019 to 2023. And I know the board will be reviewing the strategic plan over the summer, and going into the fall, we'll be engaging the community in a process to develop a new strategic plan for the 2023-2024 school year. And at this time, I'd just like to say thank you to our senior team, Mark, Sean, and Laura, the Learning Services Department, many of whom are here with us this evening, teachers and support staff who have lived and breathed and led this work associated with this plan over the last 4 years. So I raise my hands to you. I look forward to the next plan, but I think we can safely say that we haven't let this plan just sit on the shelf. It's really part of what this school district is, and I hope trustees are proud of that work. With that, I do hope you've had an opportunity to have a look at it. The document is still in draft, so I've seen a couple things today that I need to change, and maybe trustees have seen some things as well, and you can let me know either tonight or send me an email. Mark and the Learning Services Department are here this evening, so with that, I'll end the presentation and ask if you have any questions for us.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, and it looks like Mark has a comment as well. Mark, you can go first.
Thanks, Naomi. Thank you, Scott, and all staff for I think Leanna said, wow, what Leanna commented on in the chat, I was close to that myself. Really, really great stuff. But I also want to acknowledge all staff in the district that has risen to the challenge in the last year. We've had loss of staff through retirement or through moving facilities, and that's had an effect on the kids for sure. But we've had a lot of things I'm not going to mention. I'm going to stick into my zone of family of schools because we've seen things in the media that have been challenging, but staff, both from administration all the way to their support staff, have really, really risen to the challenge with respect to supporting the students and supporting parents when things arise. We've had transformative electrical issues at Dover, which, wow, staff has hats off to them, finding things at the last minute that managed to sort that out. Amazing. We had school access issues at Seaview, which were resolved. Thank you to the District of Lantzville and staff again, district staff. Again, capacity issues. We know that we have capacity issues and we're playing with shells, and we're managing to get that. That's not easy work at all. So that needs to be acknowledged. Recently, we have some students that are unfortunately unable to come home. They had an extended bit of a field trip. So blessings to staff for arranging that and burning the midnight oil on that. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for the year. We acknowledge all our successes and acknowledge all our challenges that have resulted in successes as a result of having such great staff. So thank you, Scott, and whomever put that together. My money is on Dale. Did a lot of that, finding the photos and finding the videos. Thank you, Dale. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thanks.
All right, and Joe says Heichka from the NDTA, and I just want to ditto what Leanna said. I actually started to cry. I'm going to admit it, because you can see the heart that goes into the teachings, the activities from teachers. You can see it with the kids, and just on a personal note, the Indigenous piece always sort of really moves me, because I personally can tell you from a personal and professional level that we've grown so much from when I started in this district in 1993. So yeah, thank you very much for that presentation, Scott Heichka. And I see Dale said, thank you, Mark. The comms executive assistant, Shauna DeBolt, took charge of this video. So thank you very much, Shauna. All right, so on that note, we're going to move to our last piece in terms of items, our agenda pieces. Dawn Balcom, our assistant superintendent, has the
thank you, Chair. I noticed there's a trustee comment in the for the last agenda, so maybe we'll get that comment before we move on.
Oh, Greg, you must have snuck in before I had switched.
That's okay. I don't fault you, Naomi. I know it's hard to try to keep track of everything that's going on. Pretty much mostly what I'd like to say has already been said. The one piece that I'd like to add perhaps is for me, I look forward to this time of the year where we get to celebrate our achievement for the school year. And I think the video was a really good touch this year, and I want to commend staff for that. It really reminded me of why I'm here and the work that I'm doing. Just helps to ground us, I think, into seeing some the good work that's happening in the district. So thanks again. Really much appreciate the work, and I look forward to what we accomplish when we develop the next strategic plan.
Thanks so much, Greg. Okay, Dawn, it's your show now.
Thank you so much, and through the chair. I put together an information sheet. A board motion that passed at the last education committee meeting was for staff to provide a list of student engagement involvement at the district and board level and to report back to the next education committee meeting. So the information sheet there, I tried to provide a high level overview of student voice that takes place at the school level. And there's examples there of how students at various schools connect with their voice and get information through to the school administration around decision-making processes there, and then provided opportunities that we provide at the district level where we bring students together. And we've had senior staff as well as frequently the board chair would participate in those student voice sessions, and listed a range of different topics and activities that help inform staff at the senior level around areas where we can provide resources and supports for initiatives that the students have told us directly. And then at the end, I just put a few considerations because there's kind of two different approaches that I see the board contemplating. One is involving students in the existing board governance models. So if you wanted to add student voice to the education committee or to other board committees, some considerations about the benefits of having students involved with that, as well as some of the challenges related to that. And then the other contemplation that I put for the trustees to consider tonight is whether the trustees would like to formalize participation in some of the existing student voice structures at the district level, where we bring students together and formalize board participation in that way. And also with that, some considerations around the benefits of doing that. We get a very diverse group of students, and we can pull together specific voice their students around topics, so there's a benefit to having that where you get broad representation. There's some potential barriers as well, as our students are accessible during the day, and we know that not all trustees can come to a morning meeting with students to engage in their processes. So I leave the information sheet with the trustees, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know you're probably wanting to talk a little bit among trustees around ways to move forward with the student voice process. So I'm happy to answer questions or sit back and let you contemplate how you want to move forward with student voice.
Thanks very much, Don. I can see that Mark has a question.
Thank you, Naomi. Oh, Don, thank you for the report. I love it. I read it and I immediately filled my bucket for the day. Thank you. I have a question though, through you, Naomi, to staff. The students at Student Voice, how are they selected or determined?
It's a good question. I'm going to take it back several years where Student Voice, we would ask schools to send us Student Voice representatives, and we didn't really specify what the topics were, what we wanted to. It was basically an invitation for schools to send students to share out with district staff, and then our school staff would know it's with the superintendent and secretary treasurer and stuff. And so often we would have students coming to those meetings that had a very common experience in school. They were being successful. They had lots of confidence in how things were going. And we got a pretty consistent message from those students. Things are going great. I love all the opportunities. I'm doing great in school. And we realized that wasn't really representative of the broader student experience. So this year we've been and last year we've been very particular in asking our principals and vice principals, when you're bringing student voice, we would often say, if you can, please have students come. They can come forward with the representation of the diversity of your school. So we've had students who have had very poor experiences in schooling coming and sharing with us those experiences. We've had students who have come and whether they are part of a community, they would come and share a voice of a representative group of students, and they may say, I've got a group of friends that have had this experience, whether it's around bullying or racism, or they would tell personal experiences. So our student voice group has been very diverse, and I think if you ask, Trustee Keller was at the last student voice session. I think he could probably speak to the diversity. Trustee McKay's been at sessions where also there's been a very broad. So we've really appreciated that schools have brought forward students that we feel are very representative of all of our students.
Thanks, Don. Thank you. Yeah, I have a follow. I'll wait until everyone gets around first, because yeah. Thanks, Don. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Greg.
So through you, this is a general comment. Yeah, Don's right. I was fortunate enough to attend our last Student Voice on June the 2nd. That's the first one I've been able to attend, and I was really appreciative that it happened when I had the opportunity. And I'll tell you, we had, I want to say, over 20, Don, students from most of the secondary schools across the district. I think there were a few that didn't make it this time, but and to have that many students sit in a room with us and share their thoughts, and in this case, the topic was the strategic plan and sort of discussion around each of the 4 goals, what's working, what's not working, and a little bit of room for the discussion to go the way it's going to go. Very, very valuable. And I surely would like to see that continue. The one area of growth I would see is finding some way for us to have a bit more two-way dialogue with the student voice, so that we ensure that, for example, if the board is looking for student feedback, perhaps we can utilize that group if it aligns with the timing of the project, or maybe we align the timing of the project with the opportunity for student voice. I kind of think that has more value than just having someone sit in a committee or 1 or 2 students, because you're getting student perspectives from across the entire district and a range of students representing the diversity of students as well. So, I had discussions with students who were very academic oriented, for example, and students who were graduating and had other plans. They wanted to work or do other things with themselves, and that's fine too. You know, and I think from that perspective, I learned a lot as a trustee sitting at that table, and I think the rest of us as a board would learn a lot if we were able to harness, find ways to continue to harness the wisdom, I would say, that those students shared with us, because very well spoken, very intelligent people around the table. And one further thought before I go, the other thing that I want to share as well, because in addition to the student voice, we also have student representation on our Environmental Sustainability and Stewardship Committee, which was also June the 2nd. And on that committee meeting, we actually had a student presentation. So I guess all I'm really getting at is maybe we could do a better job of communicating the way that our students are supporting the board, because they definitely are, and there's really good opportunities that I'm starting to learn more about as I'm getting the opportunity to interact with them in these different committees and group structures. So appreciate you bringing this report. Mark, I really appreciate you raising this item at the last meeting, and look forward to seeing what the board would like to do.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Leanne.
Sorry, I got a little butterfingers here with my computer. I just wanted to have a comment just regarding the Enable Change Student Forum that was hosted at NDSS in May. I was able to attend that, which was an amazing opportunity to just sit and listen to students wholeheartedly and passionately. Some of them were very passionate. Discuss the topics that they wanted to discuss. There was a facilitator there, Rod Allen, and he did a little bit of an icebreaker. Students chose the topics they wanted to get into, and then they sat in groups and had these discussions. And from that, Katie, one of the VPs at NDSS, is collating the information with students. So that's the big thing, right? Is these students from NDSS organized this, but it included students from all of the high schools, and they also invited students from Parksville Qualicum, from Cowichan, and from the Greater Victoria School District to participate. And the goal of this is to move from student voice to student advocacy. And one of the ways that admin educators at secondary schools have been discussing this happening is through the creation of a district-wide student advisory council, where the discussion is led by students on what is important to them and what they would like to see change within the district. So I just wanted to add that piece, just because I think our educators are really doing a good job of listening to students, and they are working on this. It's just maybe sometimes we don't get to hear about it as much as we would like. Thanks.
Chantel.
Gosh, sorry, Leanne, you just kind of dropped a little information there. I'm like trying to process that now, because when I was there, I actually got to stay there for a little bit to hear it, but they're sort of in their groups, and I didn't really want to stand there and go, hi, can I hear what you're saying? So I didn't realize the enormity of that. I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing, unfortunately. I didn't realize it was to work on that. That's interesting. Like I am really happy with this report, Dawn. Thank you so much. That's really helped a lot. Sort of kind of visually put it into, steps and things like that and how things are working. And I'm really glad that everyone's passionate about this, because we all have this common passion to have this happen, and how it's going to play out in the future. I mean, obviously what you're doing is already working. It's great. And it's just, how do we as trustees kind of bring that into our own practices, right? In a safe way that gives us that authentic voice from students. And as Greg said too, it's perhaps trying to find a way that, you know, other trustees can attend, you know, specific ones. Because whenever I go to anything like a conference or something like that, I'm supposed to do a report, and I write this report knowing that it's through my own lens and my own education, my own perspectives, my own biases, right? What I want to hear is what I will hear, right? And so, not to say that we're doing it for, you know, malicious reasons or anything, but that's just who we are as humans. And it'd be really great to experience that as well and kind of get that through our own understanding. So my hat's off to everybody for this. I think it's a bigger, longer conversation. I know it's happening in a lot of different spaces as well. But I'm really glad we've started with this report as well. I think it's a really good founding, grounding information. So thank you for that, Dawn. I guess I didn't really have a question. It was more of a comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Mark, you have a follow-up?
Thanks, Naomi. I don't think Tanya's had a chance to speak yet. I'll let Tanya go.
No,
go ahead
you
and-
just go ahead and then Tanya can go after. I just saw Tanya afterwards, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my comment is basically that the report really confirms and cements the thoughts I've had over the last 30 years. There absolutely are measurable benefits to this type of inclusion with respect to students having some sort of tangible voice. So all 9 of us trustees can hear them loudly and clearly. So hearing about student voice, what Greg mentioned with the good work coming out of it is really incredibly heartwarming. And I think we can build on that success and enhance the voice of students so it can be heard, you know, even louder and clearer. It's appropriate and timely to discuss inclusion given the month of the calendar in terms of including students at some of our committees. And I'm sure we can all agree that enhancing inclusion whenever possible and however possible is a goal worthy in achieving. So thanks again, Dawn and staff, for putting together the report. It's really rich in information and a worthwhile read. Because in the report, it states that while the benefits of including student voice through ad hoc and formalized groups are numerous, which I wholeheartedly agree, we don't really have a clear path just yet on how to accomplish it, which you mentioned. And I feel it's incumbent on all of us as a board to kind of clear that path, being ever so mindful not to do any harm to what we already have in place, right? For example, student voice. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix. So I think it's doing a good job so far. You know, so I'm looking at more from an enhancement, not a replacement. So to be sure, the benefits listed in the report are outlined to include bringing enhanced student agency, increased diversity of thoughts and perspectives, leadership opportunities. These are all worthwhile and valued subjects, Naomi. And enhancing student engagement is a passion I hope we all share. I've seen the couple of challenges laid out in the report that Dawn laid out, and I acknowledge those challenges as very real. And I believe that we as a district can overcome those challenges together. I really believe that we can. So I'm excited to keep going on this and move forward once we've all had the opportunity to reset over the course of the summer. And I'd like to move at this time to recommend that the Board of Education direct the chair to put together a working group or ad hoc committee at the chair's discretion with the mandate to come up with solutions to the challenges as outlined and identified in the report.
Is this a motion you're making, Mark?
Yes, I so move. I move to recommend that the Board of Education direct the chair to put together a working group or ad hoc committee at the chair's discretion with a mandate to come up with solutions to the challenges that Dawn outlined and identified in the report.
With a mandate to what? Sorry.
The mandate to come up with solutions to the challenges as outlined and identified in the report. Because it's a beautiful report. I love it.
Mark, Karen is asking you to put it in the chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to jot it down and
Yeah,
it's,
I'll just have to copy paste that.
I'll second for debate.
the seconder is Tanya.
Okay. Just copying. There, I posted it in the chat there.
Okay, I see it. Okay, so move at this time to recommend that the Board of Education direct the chair to appoint an ad hoc committee with a mandate to identify and come up with solutions to the challenges as outlined in the report, and it's seconded by Tanya. Do you want to motivate it?
Yeah, very briefly. Thank you, Naomi, and thank you, Tanya, for seconding it, for at least for the purposes of discussion, so we could sort of chew on it. The report identifies a few challenges, and I believe that we can overcome those challenges if we work towards this. The motion moves us forward to achieve success in enhancing the student inclusion with respect to being identified as equitable stakeholders. And the motion is designed in the spirit of trust, collaboration, and inclusion. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you.
And thank you, Tanya, for seconding it.
Do we have any comments? Tanya?
Thank you. I actually I don't see it for me in the chat. I don't know why, but that's okay because I do understand the gist of the motion. And I think that actually this is probably a good way to move forward on this. I still have some questions around, for example, whether we have a district student council or a district leadership group, student leadership group. But I think that that's actually things that the committee can dig into a little more deeply in doing the work that is laid out here, because there's things in the report that I actually think I would love to ask staff more questions about. And this might be the best process for being able to move forward on this in a timely manner without going so fast that we do it poorly. Because I do think this is something that this has been something the board, my first board, talked about, and we sort of put a pause in it and never really came back to it. And I think it is important. I think it speaks to respect for our students who are the most impacted by our work. I think it removes some of the hierarchy in our system by having a clearer way for us to be involving students and hearing from students, we who are policymakers and strategic decision makers. So I think this is actually a really good idea and a good way to move forward.
Thank you. Chantel?
Hi, I'm going to be cheeky and make a motion to make an amendment to the motion. Because the motion doesn't include what we're talking about here, which is student voice. So the amendment would say, move at this time to recommend that the Board of Education direct the chair to appoint an ad hoc student voice committee with a mandate to identify, come up with solutions to the challenges as outlined in the report. In the perhaps, sorry, I almost spoke French there for a second. I don't know why, but
I think as outlined in the report would suffice.
Right, as outlined in the report dated June 7th or something like that, just to identify this is the report we're talking about. So.
Okay. All right, so then you want to add in June 7th as well at the end. Karen, do you got that?
I do.
Okay. All right. So, so now we'll do, I guess we'll vote on, does anybody want to comment on Chantel's amendment?
Seconder.
Oh, right. So we need a seconder. Thank you. Do I have
and if I'm allowed to, I'll happily second it.
Okay, Tanya. Tanya seconded. Okay. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Do you want to motivate Chantel or Tanya or?
I don't think I really need to. I'm just clarifying.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so call the question, I guess. So are all those in favor of the amendment to the motion? Or should I say, if you're not in favor, please put it in the chat, or put approved if you approve in the chat.
Right, because right now we're voting on the amendment.
Right now you're voting on the amendment, which is adding in the student voice and the date June 7th at the end. So we have favor, and favor. 6, 7. Okay. Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay, it looks like the amendment to the motion is passed. So now we'll go back to the motion. The original motion. Sorry, I'm just trying to find. So this would be, I would be including the change, correct? We recommend that the Board of Education direct the chair to appoint a student voice ad hoc committee with a mandate to identify and come up with solutions to the challenges as outlined in the report dated June 7th, 2023. Is there anyone opposed? If so, put it in the chat.
I thought we were going to comment before, or should we go straight to vote now? Or
Oh, okay. Does anyone, sorry, I apologize. Does anyone want to comment?
I'm going to let Greg go first.
Does Greg want to comment?
Yeah, and actually, through your chair, if it's okay, it's more of a question to Mark as the mover of the motion. I just want to make sure I understand the intent of the committee. So I was hoping to ask, is the intent of this work, should it pass, to find a way for increased student voice, or physically having someone sit at the table at the committee, for example? Because that might change the way in which I vote.
Oh, thanks, Greg. Good question. No, the motion is just to basically how Don outlined in the report some of the challenges that he had identified, and the committee could go over those, and they can come up with something completely, different, or they could come up with something, in line with what Don said were the positives. It's completely up to the committee. So as the chair, Greg, that would be for you to decide who makes up the committee, I would imagine. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'd be working with the committee to figure that out, but
Yeah,
okay. No,
yeah.
thank you. I
Okay.
just wanted to understand the intent
Sure.
behind the motion. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Greg.
Okay. And I guess Chantel, you had a comment?
Right. So now I'm thinking that maybe the motion should be changed just a little bit, just a little tweak again. Because it sounds like it's just to, look at the challenges of having a student voice, but I almost wonder if the mandate maybe could be changed a little bit. But I think maybe if this passes, that the chair could decide that, well, yeah, I'm a little bit confused now. So if this is like maybe changed just a tiny bit to make it like very clear that that's what Mark was intending.
I'm going to speak now, actually. So to me, it's very clear this motion is that he's asking us to create an ad hoc committee to come up with some of the solutions that Don had outlined in the report that were the challenges to different scenarios. And I wanted to speak on the talk of having a student on a committee. I don't see why we couldn't have, this is my opinion, why we couldn't have a student voice or a student-wide advisory council and also have a student sitting on the education committee as an example. I just want to emphasize the importance, and I realize like one of the drawbacks that was mentioned was a student not understanding governance, but that's how students learn about governance, is by actually participating. I was a British Columbia youth parliamentarian when I was in grade 11 and 12 at Ladysmith Secondary, represented our school. In Victoria, I sat in the legislature, and I never knew a thing about parliamentary procedure before I actually went there. So I think it's of so much value, especially when we're living in a time where there are very few democracies left, true democracies left in the world. And I think we need to educate our students and give them any opportunity they can to participate in elected representation. That's the social studies teacher in me coming out. I feel very strongly about it. So I think that, you know, this ad hoc committee could look at a variety of scenarios. And to me, narrowing it down to something really specific isn't necessary. I think it's the way it's written right now gives it a room for investigation and less constraints. So that's my argument.
Naomi, you're muted.
Sorry, Leanne, I just had to scroll back down. So your turn.
No worries. The buttons are tricky tonight.
I know.
I just was also like Greg, I was kind of looking for clarification. I understand what you were saying, Naomi. I guess what my clarifying would be, in Don's report, I see that he's saying the challenges of having trustees sit in on Student Voice, potentially because of the times of day that it would be. Maybe I'm misreading. I don't really see any other super concerns. I know we do have students on different committees and they have the opportunity to speak at a couple of those. I also, just kind of speaking to that district-wide student advisory council, I personally am not sure if that's something we can direct doing. For me, it comes down to, for me, Student Voice is listening to what students want and having them direct the conversations in the way that they see fit. So I'm not sure how I see that working in another report. And I'm not sure if there's someone on staff that could speak to something that's might be happening in the background currently regarding this. That's just kind of my thought.
I was just going to add that having student voice is really important in listening, but it would be super cool for a student to be sitting on the education committee and actually hearing their voice actually being put into action as well. Being a participant in that would be a really cool thing. Dawn, I'm sorry, you looked like you were going to add something.
Thank you, through the chair. I think on the portion where we would say involve trustees in the formalized student voice processes that are in place, I think those would be the ones that the district organizes. So if we organize an event, I think we would be able to formalize the structure of placing trustees within that structure. Where Leanne was talking about some of the school level ones and the ones where their district students are getting together from different schools and other districts, I don't think we would necessarily, you know, insert trustees into that formally, but that may be something that we would in a broad effort, want to have trustees participate in wherever possible. And I think many of those come through invitations by schools are often wanting to bring trustees into the conversation to listen and bring back to the board. But I think on a formal basis, it would be the district student voice that we organize from the district level, if that helps.
Excuse me, Naomi, you find yourself muted again.
Oh my goodness, sorry about that. I thought I had clicked on it. All right, I'm just trying to find the motion. I apologize here. Okay, so the motion is to recommend that the Board of Education direct the chair to appoint a student voice ad hoc committee with a mandate to identify and come up with solutions to the challenges as outlined in the report dated June 7th, 2023. I guess, are there any that, how should I do this? Are there any that vote against this? So I don't have any that are voting against this motion, so I will take it that the motion is passed. All right. Moving on. There's no, doesn't look like there's any correspondence referred from the regular board meeting. There's no unfinished business. In new business, Mark Robinson, you would like to share something?
I'm just too happy. Thank you. If Dale is available, I think I don't want to ruin a good night by giving incorrect information. So if Dale could let on behalf through you what we're doing on Sunday and why it's a special day.
Thank you.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Dale. I apologize.
That's okay. Good evening, trustees and those watching at home. This week in Nanaimo and across the region, we've been celebrating Pride Week, and that started on June 5th. And we are ending Pride Week on June 11. Here in Nanaimo, there is a Pride Parade that's happening, and that's sponsored by the Nanaimo Pride Society. That's happening from 11, starting at 11 o'clock. And we are inviting those at home and those in the schools and our staff to take part. And whether if you want to watch or I've been told that we can invite anyone we want to the parade. So if anyone at home or in the school wants to take part in the parade, they can meet us at the staging site on Victoria Avenue on Sunday morning. And I would suggest that you get there no later than 10:30. And join us on the parade. You can't miss us. We're going to have our very own school bus, electric school bus, with us walking while we walk beside that bus. So looking forward to it. And again, once again, thank you for the opportunity to share this great news and happy Pride Month, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dale, and thank you, Mark, for raising that awareness and letting everyone know. I just think back to when I was in high school and I had friends that were gay, but never shared it during my generation for fear of retribution, bullying, violence, actually. And so I think it is, I think of those friends now and what they went through to get to where we are now, where you know, the majority of the population embraces Pride Week and recognizes diversity and the importance of inclusion. And I'm just very grateful that we're at this place in our country that everyone is treated equally. So yeah, thank you very much. It doesn't look like there's any questions. I don't see any. And so I guess we need a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, again. Just before, thank you again for all your hard work. Much appreciated. And yeah, so a motion to adjourn. I saw Tanya. Do we have a seconder? Chantel? Okay. All in favor? I'm really screwing everyone up today because I keep on saying I'm sorry. Is there anyone that, okay, good. There's everyone. All right. Leanne, where's Leanne? She's not here. And Greg, nobody's disapproved it. So all in favor, yes, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.